Wow.
Today's podcast is sponsored by Security Unlocked, a new podcast from Microsoft focusing on artificial intelligence and machine learning and security. Check out the links down in the description below. And this podcast has had some technical difficulties, some human-related difficulties.
Are we playing a game of how low can they go?
So I've already had the conversation with my wife that on Tuesday, which we have to figure out when we're actually recording that episode, that swearing is not allowed.
Swearing is not allowed? Is that a problem?
Well, somebody asked a question about the technology that has caused like the most amount of pain in your life that we've introduced. Sure. And there was an expletive in her brief description.
Okay. Well, actually, I think people would enjoy that expletive if they could hear it. But yeah, I did. We were watching TV last night, and I paused it and I said, "Hey, let me read you through the questions we already got." You know. Mm-hmm. So I think that kind of just putting that in her head, I think is going to be helpful for her. But yeah, I'm sure most of the swearing that happens in my house comes out of my mouth for sure.
Yeah, I mean, it's I'm trying to articulate how people realize like it's not difficult, like what we do where we talk here every day.
It's not difficult. Yeah, of course it is.
It's not difficult, but there's definitely a skill involved in knowing. First off, I got to recrop Paul's head, but there's definitely a skill involved with cadence. And Paul and I actually do a fairly decent job of not talking over each other, which again, it comes from just brute force of us sitting here and chatting every day. But like it takes moments in time, and
our wives don't hang out.
So, no, like they don't go drink. They did drink, I guess,
each other's
in Maui, but
but I mean, just in general, like right. You and I are friends, I guess, or whatever. Mm-hmm. But we're also, we work together, we talk every day, so there's a natural interaction that occurs. But our wives are not. They're not unfriendly.
No, but I mean, they don't. And for people who are curious about really like the sausage is made, like the actual details, I pay attention. I know we like hamstring this podcast together, but now I'm annoyed because when I switched to Paul, it kind of you like bounce and float around. Like it was never a perfectly smooth transition, but now it's like really rough, and so I got to rebuild this. Thank you, XSplit, for failing that.
Well, it seems like this happens every once in a while,
Yeah.
And it's not. There's like, this has always been my experience with Skype type technology in general, I guess. Sorry, my cat's freaking out for some reason. Sometimes my cat hears my voice and assumes that what I want to do is play with her, right? Like I'll be doing Duolingo, speaking in Spanish, and she comes around and then like, "Hey, what's up?" And she heard me talking to you, and now she thinks for some reason we do this. We play in my office together, but we don't.
Yeah. I've lost. Things are just not going my way today, I think, is the way to describe what is currently going on. At this very moment, I'm just waiting for something else to fail. Anyways, Microsoft yesterday announced, well, first off, we need to rewind the clock back for 7-8 months. Actually, I bet you could even find a timeline longer than that. We knew exactly when the Mars Perseverance rover was potentially going to land on Mars. And I say potentially because we didn't know if it was actually going to land or create another crater.
Yep,
but we knew. And so I'm sitting there watching this. Like,
can't wait to hear where you're going with this. This is amazing.
I'm sitting there all amped up, like watching this. Like, we have 7 minutes of terror as this thing floats down through. And like I'm sitting there with my wife, like I'm just listening to the audio. Like I'm loving this. And like the whole thing lands. It's like they send pictures back from Mars. It's like, yeah. And then I pull up Twitter, and what do I find? Microsoft announced a new version of Office Perpetual, and they're cutting LTSC timelines from 10 to 5 years. They chose when the rover was landing to announce that.
See, that's not where I thought you were going with this. Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
Anyways. So, Office 2021.
Yeah, they knew the world wouldn't be watching.
Office 2021 coming later this fall.
If you heard a squawking sound, that was my cat being airlifted into the next room by my foot. It's like, just get in front of me. I can't grab you while I'm doing the pod. There you are. Bonk. 3 points.
This
anyway,
is the epitome of a live podcast.
Yeah. What I thought you were going to say
Mhm.
was Microsoft has known for the same number of months that 21H1 was going to be a minor release. Why could they have
Oh
just
yeah,
told us then and then landed it on this day?
yeah,
Um, which is also a fair point. But yeah, okay.
yeah. That
So I mean, the perpetual license stuff. I don't. Obviously it's on the way out, right? Everyone understands this, you know.
I think they do it because it's a requirement, because there's always
Yeah,
going to be that
sure.
very small handful of customers that says, look, these machines are not connected to the internet. I need a version of Office that will run on that. And I think it will stick around forever. Now,
Yes, but
the
they want to make it as undesirable as possible.
right.
And you know, it's sort of like what LastPass just did with the free version of the service. So like, well, how do
Hmm.
we make this so nobody wants this thing?
Right.
Um, and you know, because they obviously they want their customers over on the subscription version, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know. Yeah,
And then the other
listen,
big announcement was the LTSC, the long-term servicing channel, was
yeah.
historically, up until the Mars rover landed, 10 years.
This is the milestone.
Yeah, and now that they put the third, this is the third rover,
Yeah.
right? Opportunity. What was the other one?
Fourth,
Spirit.
I think, isn't it? I thought it was fourth one.
It might be the fourth one. It's so. Yes, I think you're right, because they had a really small one, but this is like the same. Like they landed like a Honda Accord on the planet. Like it's not like a Surface Book 3 size thing. Like this thing is
No,
huge.
yeah.
I think it's the third iteration of like that style of rover. They could,
I mean, this is like throwing a snowball at a distant target, except you have to add in the gravity of planets and you know, the distance of things and so forth. I mean,
Yeah.
it's
and then the fact that they showed the ellipses that they had used for previous landing sites, and like
Yeah.
they're getting these things like they're not just throwing a snowball, like they're now throwing darts and like hitting
Right.
like one of the center two rings on the dartboard at this point from that distance.
There's also the kind of a terrain difficulty aspect to it as well. They're not
Mhm.
just launching it into a flat desert space or whatever.
Right. Yeah.
This is actually the most difficult terrain they've ever landed one of these things in. So yeah, a lot of it's you know, it's like they're artificially bumping up. Like, what can we do to make this more difficult? It's like,
Yeah.
you know, I'll shoot the you know, the pull thing behind my back
I mean,
at the far side of Mars.
just an incredible feat of technology, and
Yeah.
just like,
No, I find this stuff to be awe-inspiring. I've always, well, you know, I think we're the same on this. It's amazing. It's amazing.
yeah. And then on the same vein, just because I enunciate a lot of times that I don't watch a lot of TV, but my wife and I are watching another series, Paul, and it's on
Can't
Apple.
wait to hear what it is.
It's on Apple.
It's on Apple.
Yeah,
Is it For All of Mankind?
it is, because
Yeah.
this is like the natural evolution from we watched The Right Stuff, which was
Yep.
on Disney, and then my wife watched some other series by herself, but it was like some government related show. It was a drama. It was like
On Apple?
no, I don't know what it was on. It might
Oh,
have been
yeah, because I don't. Okay.
might have been Netflix, Hulu, whatever, and it was like government related stuff, and like the Senate and the president and all that. And then I saw For All
House of
Mankind.
Cards, almost certainly.
It might be House of Cards. Yeah, actually, I think that's, or it might have been Designated Survivor. I don't know.
Or it could have been Veep, which would be hilarious.
Yeah. Anyways, and then I looked at the description of For All Mankind, and they do a really good job of blending like real stuff, like what really happened, and then branching off their own narrative from it. And it's we both dig it.
So it's a great show.
Yeah.
You'll love it. I just found this out randomly. I think it was on Twitter, maybe in the comments. Someone mentioned that the second season just debuted maybe last night or yesterday.
Oh,
or
was it?
something.
So
here's the thing. Yeah, here's what I don't know.
Yeah.
Because we went back to we watched the show Servant on Apple TV Plus, which we liked. Second season just launched. We're like, nice. Just happened to catch it, so we were looking for a new show, and I'm like, hey, Servant's back. I'm like, great, we'll watch that, no problem. So 8:00, we watch Servant, whatever the episode ends, and I'm like, where's the next one? Oh, come on. They're doing it where it comes out like once a week. So we were like, oh, so now we're just gonna wait 2 months or whatever it is. And so, because we want to watch the whole thing at once. So I don't know they must do everything the same, I guess. So For All Mankind, what you probably have is all of season 1 plus one episode of season 2 or something. I'm guessing. So I don't know how you watch things, but you might want to just, you can binge watch the first season, obviously.
So we typically will only watch one episode at a time. Like we won't sit down, and at least we haven't yet.
Yeah, but you watch them maybe not every single night, but
yeah, we've watched a couple nights in a row, I would say.
Yeah.
And so I think we're on 6. I think there's 10 in the first season.
I don't remember.
So
it's a good show.
Yeah. So you know what else is a good show, Paul?
Yes, I do.
Today's podcast is brought to you by Security Unlocked, a new podcast from my friends over at Microsoft, Nick and Natalia, and where they take a closer look at the latest innovations in threat intelligence, security research, and data science with a special focus on demystifying artificial intelligence in machine learning. They just dropped a new episode. It's episode 15. I have not listened to it just because I think it came out yesterday, the 17th. So 2 days ago. I'm a little bit behind. Enterprise Resilience Breakfast of Champions. You should go take a listen because I am going to as well here in the near future. But this is a great podcast for those who are thinking about entering into this arena or this profession. And you can find links down in the description below, or you can go to right here, aka.ms/securityunlocked. And that will take you to right where you need to. And there's also links and things all over. And you just click them, hit play, and you are off and running.
I watch a lot of YouTube videos, and like one of the things I'm always amused by is they'll say something. They'll always do this. They'll be like, they'll point up and they'll be like, click the bell or do the blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, the things you're pointing at are down here. I don't know. Like, I guess maybe the UI is different in different places or something. Maybe they're thinking of a mobile device. Like, why would you? Don't point to parts of the screen, people.
Yeah, well, it's supposed to be in the top left corner. Like you can do little call out cards or whatever, or you can just do like links down like there.
Yeah, you can see that's better.
That too.
Yeah, it still seems longer than.
Anyways, I appreciate that amuses you. That is.
I'm like a cat, playing with some.
Anyway. One thing that does amuse me anymore, Paul, it still does or whatever. Google just doesn't care about Android updates. Like they don't take the like they're announcing Android 12 and like how do they do it? They just like hoof it out there. Like there's no marketing event. There's nothing. It's just here it is, done. Go play.
But as a technical person, I kind of appreciate this approach, right? And this is the old. I miss these days, but the way of things in the Microsoft space used to be. You went when a new version of Windows was coming down the pike. And remember, at the time these were like 3-4 years apart, whatever. Mm-hmm. The first hint of it would occur at an obscure hardware show for device driver makers and so forth, because maybe they were changing the driver model or something. WinHEC would come around, and you'd start targeting those guys. Device driver level, et cetera, and then Build would come, and Build would be the, again, general app developers. Mm-hmm. Here's the new stuff, and then after all that, you would kind of get to here's the end user stuff. And the actual beta, and that's what Google's schedule is for Android, right? They do the same thing basically. If you look at what they wrote about it, it doesn't sound very interesting at all. But what's always the case is if you actually go to install it, which no one normal should, but you can if you want, if you have a Pixel device, so you could just look at it in an emulator. There's actually stuff in there, of course there is, mm-hmm. And that's the beauty of any early build of any platform. I mean. People who know the system can kind of dig around and like, oh, look at this is new, or you can do like a side-by-side comparison. They're changing a little slider switch or whatever the thing is. Mm-hmm. I just look, I know people don't like Google, and I get it. And certainly there are aspects to Google that I don't like for sure. Mm-hmm. I sort of resent the fact that because they've been so successful in advertising, they can afford to have all these platforms and whatever. But if you're coming from the Microsoft space, Google, I've said this before, Google's kind of the next Microsoft. And this is one of the ways that I mean that, they approach the market a lot like Microsoft does, really, and they approach certainly the development of their platforms like Microsoft does.
Yeah. I tend to agree with that.
Like Apple does the big marketing thing, right?
Yeah.
I mean, Apple goes to developers first as well at WWDC mm-hmm. with any iOS release. But come on, that's a consumer marketing event, that keynote where they start showing new features. That's not aimed at developers at all. Nope. But it's time for the developer event. I don't know.
Yeah. And very little surprise, Roku had a huge 2020. I would think that if you are a set-top box company and you didn't have a great 2020,
quit.
Yeah.
Yep. It's time. Yeah.
You could be the Quibi or whatever that thing was called.
Right.
Meg Whitman, $1.5 billion. Just.
Yep. That was the services version of Essential or Slack. Like that. Slack should have had a big year last year. Not really. Although I guess getting purchased is the booby prize. I don't know.
Yeah, I was going to say, despite the fact that Slack didn't like blow up, like if you were a shareholder, you probably did, or an early employee.
Yeah.
Probably.
Okay, yeah. Yep. Well, they're Salesforce's problem now. That's fine.
To be honest, I completely forgot about that till you said this. Like, yeah, that's right. They did get acquired by who again? Oh, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. What's that company?
They're going to be part of Salesforce, whatever they call it, 360 now.
Sure. I can't wait till we go to shows again and we'll be in San Francisco. There'll be a Salesforce event and I can just start heckling people from the lobby of a hotel. I miss those days, Brad.
Anyways, we haven't been to San Francisco in a while because they moved. Build used to be there, and now or not. Was it Build? Yeah, it was Build, and now Build's back in Seattle, and Ignite is wherever Ignite wants to be.
Belongs in Seattle. I'm kind of glad they did that. But then again, like San Francisco is a kind of a hit or miss thing. Like there are aspects of San Francisco I love, but there are definitely problems. You know, the homeless people and all that stuff. But
yeah, what else?
And the developers freaking hate those people. I don't know.
You got anything going on this weekend?
Nope.
Good.
How about you?
I think my daughter's going to go ride a horse because we didn't have it last week because it was too cold, and apparently this week it's fine. I don't know. And then it's supposed to be like somewhat decently warm, and I don't know if all this snow is going to melt or not, but
it's snowing right now.
Is it?
Yeah. I told you this. I drove to the gym yesterday. Did this come up? No, maybe this happened afterwards. Yeah, I guess it was afterwards. I drove to the gym like an idiot yesterday because they texted everyone to say they were going to open at 10. And I waited till 10. I went. It was closed. And it was like treacherous out. And it was one of those things. I'm like halfway there, and I'm like, why am I driving my car on this? This is stupid. And then I got there, and it was closed. Like, you guys, seriously.
Well, there's always tomorrow.
Well, I went today, but I mean,
or whatever.
The roads are still good. I got to say, I don't know how to explain it. Like that really bad storm. Actually, I wouldn't have driven in that. One of the earliest storms, it looked terrible up, but the roads were fine. But like the light snow, for some reason, the roads are awful.
Yeah, it's probably because they're already cold.
Yeah,
much like yourself. Anyways, today's podcast is brought to you by Security Unlocked. You can find links down in the description below or go directly to their site at securityunlockedpodcast.com.
Oh, it looks like snow.